While I'm talking about this screen here a little bit, I know I'm kind of jumping around, but I just remembered while I was in the unlock screen. The touch screen is not very responsive. It's not always responsive. Sometimes it works fine and responds to everything, but you can see sometimes it just doesn't respond. It is a capacitive touch screen. It's just not very responsive, and I don't know if that's because maybe the glass is more durable, so it's thicker, and sometimes that causes it not to be very responsive. But there's been several times when I've been using it where I'm trying to select something and it won't let me select it. I'm trying to scroll through and it won't respond to my touch. I try to unlock it and I maybe have to do it a couple of times. And you can't really see it now in the review because it's not happening, but definitely while I was testing it out, it was something that happened on a regular basis. Anytime I was using the device, it would happen a couple of times, and it got to be very frustrating. And then couple that with the fact that the processor is not that great, 600 megahertz. Whenever I did a quadrant standard test, it ranked pretty low. I can do one here right now just so I can show you guys. About the middle of the pack, but in the middle of the pack being like where the mid-range devices are, and then some of those even above it. So not that great. And so the unresponsiveness of the screen, coupled with the fact that it already has a somewhat slow processor, it just kind of got frustrating sometimes. And of course I understand that this is a mid-range device, so you can't always expect extremely fast speeds, and I understand that because I primarily deal with mid-range devices, so I know what they're capable of. But even considering that, it was a little frustrating, the speeds and the unresponsiveness. It got to be a pain sometimes, and so we'll see where it ranks here. And it scores about a 760, which is a little bit above Nexus 1 and Desire. So, right about the middle. And then, of course, in this chart, the Nexus 1 on 2.2 is all the way at the top. So, and of course, we know that there's plenty of devices that are way above that. So, you could even say that this isn't even really in the middle, because there's probably going to be about 5 or 6 devices on top of this. So it's, more towards the bottom. Just kind of, slow and laggy sometimes. And of course, you can download a task manager to kind of manage the apps that you have open. In terms of multitasking, the phone has sort of an interesting multitasking UI that's actually kind of nice looking. So, normally with stock Android, whenever you do a long hold on the home button, it just kind of pops up a black box with the icons for the apps that you have open. But on the crossover, it actually shows kind of the window that you have open, and then you can close whichever one. So, kind of nice looking, more of Pantech's custom UI. But, having multiple apps open, I definitely noticed that the device slowed down. And then you can see the display is not responding again. Okay, so here we go. It just took a little while to catch up. So let's talk a little bit about battery life. The phone ships with a 1500 milliamp hour battery here underneath the battery cover. Also underneath the battery cover is the micro SD card slot. It ships with a 2 gig card, which is nice. I like that manufacturers are starting to do that more and more. And then it supports up to 32 gigs, but it ships with a 2 gig card. But has a 1500 milliamp hour battery, and actually battery life was pretty interesting, the results that I got. So the first day that I got the phone was sort of mid-morning, and I turned it on, and by the end of the day, it was dead. And it had been on for, probably, I guess, 8 hours or 9 hours, and I wasn't even doing very much with it. I did the unboxing and then kind of loaded some widgets, and then that was pretty much it. I just let it sit. So it was on standby, basically, and it lasted, till the end of the day, which was absolutely, ridiculous. Probably the worst battery life I've seen. So I was about ready to pass judgment on it, and then I charged it, and then from that charge, it lasted 2.5 days on standby, which is very good for an Android device. Even on standby to last 2.5 days is great. And then, it's at about 72%, so still not even dead yet after 2.5 days. And then I started using it, and within an hour of using it, it went from 72% to about 45%. So, on standby it has great battery life, but once you start using it, I would be surprised if it made it through an entire day. It probably will if you manage it right, you know, use a task manager, keep some apps closed, maybe stay off Wi-Fi, you know, GPS off and all that, but still, you'd probably be lucky to get an entire day out of it. So battery life, you know, wasn't entirely great. The phone is a 3G device. As you can see, it's running on AT&T's 3G network. And 3G speeds was another thing that was inconsistent. So let me go to the speed test app here, and I'll show you some of my results. So here are my results. You can see I'm getting, I start with 400 down, which is terrible. 900, yeah, it's pretty good. It's all right. 700, nah, not that good. You know, again, that's actually about 800. Then about 700. Then I go up to 1.4 megs, which is great. And then 400, 200, 300. So very inconsistent. And you can see I only got excellent speeds once, and then okay mediocre speeds a couple of times. And you can see my upload speeds are, you know, ridiculous. 100. Basically hovers around 120. So 3G speeds, in terms of testing it out and getting the actual numbers, they were very inconsistent. And actually doing web browsing, it wasn't that bad. You know, whenever I had a good connection and I had, you know, say 3 or 4 bars, the page loaded pretty well, or pretty fast. And so we'll load up PhoneDog, or reload it here, and then show you pinch to zoom. It is Android 2.2, so it does support full flash, and so you'll see the ads load here on the side, and then you can see it's pretty responsive, not too bad. Of course, I'm not going very fast, but so it's pretty good. Playing videos, the speed was pretty good. Obviously, I couldn't play it in high quality, but it still loaded pretty fast. And so, you know, the numbers for the 3G speeds were inconsistent and usually pretty bad, but in actually doing web browsing, it wasn't too bad. I didn't really notice, you know, it wasn't frustrating whenever I was doing actual web browsing. It didn't seem as inconsistent as when I actually tested it out. Okay, so lastly, we'll talk about the camera, and then we'll kind of wrap up a little bit. As you can see, it has a 3 megapixel camera, no flash obviously, but it does have autofocus, which is nice. And then it also has other features like multi-shot, timer, brightness, white balance controls. It does capture video, VGA or WVGA, so 480p video. So it does have an autofocus, which is nice. You know, a lot of mid-range devices, they have pretty much a subpar camera, which I think 3 megapixels is subpar, but then they don't have an autofocus, which is frustrating. So this one at least has an autofocus, even though it's not a great camera. And so, you know, pictures aren't amazing. Let me get a picture of my speaker. So, you know, this is just a basic picture, and, you know, in me testing it out and taking other pictures, pictures weren't amazing. The autofocus definitely helps, and, you know, whenever you get close, you'll notice that the picture is kind of grainy, doesn't look that great, but it was decent. I mean, it's a 3 megapixel camera on a mid-range phone. It's a Pantech device, so, you know, not a lot of history in terms of camera quality, but it was pretty good, not too disappointing. For the most part, I'm satisfied that it has an autofocus. That means that I can take a picture, it's going to focus, it's going to be clear enough so I can upload it to Twitter or, you know, send it to a friend if I want to. Obviously, this is not a high-end device, so you're not going to be able to use these pictures in your family photo album whenever you go on vacation, but the pictures were good enough and decent quality, you know, for what you use it for uploading pictures to Facebook or Twitter. So that is pretty much it, guys. It's a Pantech crossover from AT&T. My overall thoughts of it are, you know, it's a decent mid-range phone, but if that's all you need is a mid-range phone, AT&T has better options. The LG Phoenix/Thrive, that's a better mid-range phone. It's the same phone, the Phoenix and the Thrive, just different. One's a prepaid version, the other one is on contract, but it's the same exact phone. That phone is a better mid-range phone than the crossover. Even though the numbers are the same, processor, display, resolution, camera, the numbers are pretty much exactly the same, but I think that that would be a better option than the crossover, in my opinion. And we may do a dogfight just to show exactly how they perform when they go head-to-head. Now, if you need a physical keyboard, then the crossover is probably your best option and probably your only option in terms of a mid-range Android smartphone on AT&T. And if you just absolutely need a physical keyboard, you can't live without it, you know, you're going to have to make some sacrifices, but if you're willing to make those sacrifices, then it's worth it because it does have a good physical keyboard and it's an okay phone. It's not terrible, but if you don't need the keyboard, I would go with the Phoenix. But that's it, the crossover from AT&T. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. If you have any questions about this phone or any phone that I've reviewed or that we've reviewed, you can follow me on Twitter. My screen name is It's My Job to Know. You can send me a message. I'll try to respond to it. I can't respond to all of them, but I'll try my best. Also, we have our Phone Dog Live sort of podcast is every Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on our Ustream channel, so you can check that out and come by and we talk about the latest news and mobile tech. And also keep it on PhoneDog.com for more news, updates, and reviews. But thanks for watching this review. I'm Cindy from PhoneDog.com, and I'll see you guys later.